At American University, we don't just hope for change, we create it. We don't just dream of a better world, we make it a reality. With a graduate degree from AU, you'll access expert faculty and connections throughout DC to develop skills and experience to turn your passion into purpose. And that purpose can make all the difference in your career. Discover the difference a degree makes at american.edu/grad school.
You are listening to New Theory Radio. Theory Radio.
Hello and welcome to another edition of New Theory Radio, here live on News Talk Saga 960 AM. My name is Nav Nanwa, I am your host, and this is the show where we theorize on all things current affairs, pop culture, and everyday life. And happy quarantine day, whatever it is for you. I hope you're staying home. I hope you're staying safe. And like I said, we are going to continue to put out new content because that's what probably will keep us sane throughout all of this, is being able to keep things as normal and regular as possible. And I think for us here at New Theory Radio, it's really around creating new content and making sure that we have fresh shows each and every week, and that we theorize on all things current affairs, pop culture, and everyday life. We are officially a week away from WWE's Wrestlemania. Now, if you're not familiar with Wrestlemania, it is the pro wrestling equivalent of the Super Bowl. And if you're familiar with New Theory Radio, you know that I am a big wrestling fan. We've had wrestlers on the show. We've had different wrestling personnel that we've spoken to about different things about wrestling. We've spoken to fans. We talk a lot about wrestling here on New Theory Radio, and selfishly, that's because I'm a big fan. But you know what? WrestleMania is a big topic of discussion because despite everything that's going on right now with COVID-19, the show must go on, and WrestleMania is still going to happen. It's going to happen in a very modified fashion. Now, if you are familiar with the event, you know that there is a lot of pomp and circumstance that takes place, with the stadium and with the graphics and the set and the celebrities and the thousands of fans that are in attendance. But this year, there's going to be no fans in attendance, obviously for safety reasons. And a lot of conversation has been taking place regarding this event, whether or not it should have been postponed, the risk that WWE is currently facing right now by having their pro wrestlers still engage in non-social distancing activities, like having pro wrestling matches and filming different segments and whatnot. And it sounds like the actual organization just came out of an entire week of just filming content over the next couple of weeks. But a lot of mishaps have come up, unfortunately. And, here with me to talk about WrestleMania in greater detail, I have two individuals. I have an individual by the name of Ben Joseph, who is a kids TV show writer and someone who is also a big wrestling fan. He actually is good friends with David Arquette, and David Arquette is going to be coming out with a wrestling documentary, almost a redemption story. And if you're familiar with David Arquette, he was in a cult classic wrestling related movie called Ready to Rumble. I unlike some other fans, I don't really hate the movie. I thought it had its charm, but there are some wrestling fans that absolutely hate it. But Ben is good friends with David Arquette and was actually with them along the way when it came to the filming of this documentary. So, it's good to have Ben on the show. Him and I actually met at a film festival after party a few months ago, and it was almost like we were meant to be friends because we're both diehard wrestling fans. And then we're actually also going to be joined by a good friend of Ben's. His name is Vaughn Vertigo. He is a local independent wrestler. He actually was a former student of Ben's when it came to the teaching that Ben does on the side at Humber College. And Vaughn provides a very unique perspective. He is a wrestling performer. He actually just came back from the UK, and is now in a forced quarantine, obviously, based on his travels. And, he shed some light on what he would be thinking right now if he was in the position where he had to perform despite everything else going on around him. So we get to talking about that, but then we also have fun with WrestleMania, and we have a bit of a debate, a bit of a theory session on who we think is the true Mr. WrestleMania. And that's always a topic of conversation that usually comes about around this time. Is it Shawn Michaels? Is it Hulk Hogan? Is it The Undertaker? Is it John Cena? Is it someone that's not even mentioned in the names that I just talked about? I don't know. You'll have to tune in to find out and see who each of us think is the true Mr. WrestleMania. And then a little later in the show, I actually get to talk to my wife. Yes, Anu Singh, my wife, the mother of my daughter, Nola. We got to have a bit of a conversation yesterday. Just wanted to share some perspectives, on us two kind of going through this quarantine together as new parents. If you ask her, she feels like she's been quarantining since November when her mat leave started. But we talk about a bunch of different things. It felt good to interview somebody in person again. And again, I do commend my wife for agreeing with me to come on the show. But we talk about just the overall mindset of what it means to be quarantined with family and the things you need to consider and just the realities of quarantining. But then we also switch it up and we try to talk about some of the fun things involving quarantining, and that is streaming a lot of Netflix shows. I feel like binge watching now is fully acceptable across the board. And one show in particular that me and Anu talk about in some detail is Tiger King. Yes, the wonderful adventures of Joe Exotic. What a show. If you have not seen it, I urge you to go watch it. It is exactly what we need in this time. I would say if you really want a distraction during all of this, I think Tiger King will definitely provide you that. And we get to talking about Joe Exotic and the sort of ugly underbelly that exists when it comes to petting exotic animal zoos. All this and more on this week's edition of New Theory Radio. Again, we are recording live from my household in parts unknown Ontario. But thank you so much for tuning in. Really, really greatly appreciate it. We are going to take a quick commercial break. And then when we come back, we are talking all things WrestleMania with Ben Joseph and Vaughn Vertigo here on News Talk, Saga 960 AM.
Theory Radio.
And we are back here on New Theory Radio, here live on News Talk Saga 960 AM. My name is Nav Nanwa. I am your host. And this is the show where we theorize on all things current affairs, pop culture, and everyday life. We're still in quarantine, and there's not much to really look forward to. But the one thing I will say is something that I am sort of looking forward to in a very weird way is the fact that WrestleMania is still happening next week. And joining me to talk about this in greater detail, I got two wrestling aficionados. I'll start with the person that's on my right. I actually, funny enough, Ben, you and I met at a mutual friend's film festival after party. And that mutual friend, Dinesh Sachdev, shouts to Dinesh, was like, hey, you two need to meet. This needs to happen. And then I swear, for an hour, we just talked about wrestling, and it was amazing. And I'm so happy to finally have you on the show. So it's my good friend, Ben Joseph. Ben, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, it should be a fun time indeed. And you actually brought along a friend of yours, someone who's no stranger to the independent wrestling scene here in the GTA. Currently wrestles for promotions like Lucha TO, Magnificent Championship Wrestling, Capital City, Championship Combat. Just came back from a little stint in Europe, so we'll definitely check his temperature and see how he's doing. It's currently in his quarantine. And It is Vaughn Vertigo. Vaughn, thanks so much for making the time, man. I hope you're feeling better.
I'm starting to feel a little better. I mean, I've been back from Europe for about a year, or sorry, not a year. That'd be wild. About a week and a half now, and so far,
it probably feels like a year though.
Oh, it definitely feels like a year. It definitely feels like a year.
Man, so before we jump into this conversation, so you were in England and you were in Italy, right? Wrestling out there?
Yeah, so originally I was slated to be in Europe for 6 weeks, from about March 4th to April 14th. Obviously, things changed. Coronavirus popped up. Had to come home early, unfortunately. And, the first place we were was in Germany, and Germany is being hit pretty hard by this right now.
Crazy.
Yeah, but thankfully I was able to get home, despite the fact that the flight was very expensive. But, I'm in my 14-day quarantine, and I still have about 6 days to go.
Crazy. And you were saying that to actually get home, it was quite costly too, right?
Yeah. My flight definitely, WestJet specifically upped the price by quite a bit.
Yeah, the price gouging right now is too flipping real, man. And it's unfortunate considering the emphasis that the government is putting on Canadians to come back home and quarantine. Sometimes if you don't have the financial means, it can be really hard to even do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, the biggest thing is I didn't want to stay in England where, I don't have a house. I'd be staying at friends' houses. I don't have, a kitchen to cook in. Like, it's made much more sense just to come home and, sit it out, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Ben, how's your quarantine going, man? What have you been up to?
I'll tell you, as a freelance writer, it's basically the same thing. Like, there's no difference. It's just that you don't have to go out and meet friends for lunch and stuff, which is cooler.
Yeah.
And I just can't go to the gym, basically. So just stacking up on gym equipment on Amazon, and it's everything's sold out.
It's nuts.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Sweatpants are sold out. I was trying to buy sweatpants, and if I want to get a pair, I gotta wait a month. It's crazy.
Really? They're on back order.
My girlfriend bought a trampoline yesterday, so it's in the basement,
nice.
a mini trampoline. So
one of the mini ones, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty big actually, and it's like a bear trap. If it snaps back on you, it'll kill you probably. So
are you gonna do some Dennis Stamp workouts or what?
Yeah, probably for sure.
That was the appropriate response. Great beyond the mat joke.
Yeah. I had to. As soon as you said trampoline, I just had a visual of Ben topless, just with two weights jumping up and down. But you know what? It's trying times. I feel like that's what everyone's sort of describing this entire situation. It's also very interesting to see how everyone is sort of going through this together. But people that aren't going through it, and actually, they're probably doing it now, being that the tapings have just wrapped up, has been WWE. They've been full steam ahead. They've been super persistent to keep their shows running. Actually, Jeff, before you joined us, Ben and I were having a conversation how the allure of these empty arena shows is fading very quickly. And
oh, yes.
We're officially a week out from a 2-night WrestleMania that's going to happen in front of no fans. And I think it's going to be hilarious when you think about how much the WWE really touts attendance figures. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if they're going to be doing that next week when they're at the Performance Center and make it seem like they've broken a record for the least amount of people that have been in attendance at a WrestleMania.
I mean, I think if they were smart, they would make fun of themselves. But they understand that the world is, in this situation right now.
Yeah.
I think if they're smart, they'd take the opportunity to kind of film this more like a movie,
Well, that's what I was thinking too, man. When you think about the production that WWE has to their disposal, when I heard that they were going to move ahead with WrestleMania, I was like, you know what? There could be a cool opportunity to really make this a cinematic experience. And I think they're going to try to do that with a few of the matches. I don't know, Ben, as a writer, would you have pitched that if you were in that room? And
I would have pitched a one-day WrestleMania, 3 hours, and make it cinematic, like you said, kept Matt Hardy. Probably. Yeah. I just don't, after winning a title in an empty arena, it's going to be weird for Drew McIntyre, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. It's actually Vaughn. I called you Victor Vaughn almost.
I'll take Victor.
Victor Vaughn's not a bad name.
I get Vince Vaughn all the time too.
Vince Vaughn. I called you Victor because I'm an MF Doom fan and I'm also a big Fantastic Four nerd. But Vaughn, would you if you were a talent? How would you what do you think your mindset would be when it comes to, number one, doing these empty arena shows, number two, kind of looking at the world around you and seeing how serious this pandemic's getting, and number three, the fact that WrestleMania for a talent like yourself is, the pinnacle of someone's career. Even just being on the card, it can be an honor for a wrestler who's probably dreamt of just being associated with that brand. What like, how would you describe your mindset? Like, what would you think would be going through your mind throughout all this?
It's hard, man. I mean, because it is WrestleMania, you do want to perform there. You want to be on that stage, but at the same time, with everything going on, like, can you risk it health wise? I think with everything going on, like, it's hard to say, because everyone's gonna be flying in for WrestleMania. Like, you don't know what they're gonna contract on the plane. Like, I guess if you lived in Tampa or Orlando and you were able to drive in, maybe it's a bit more safe for you. But that's just not the case in the reality of everybody at WrestleMania. Not everybody's from Florida. Everybody's traveling from all over the country. I think it'd really come down to who you have in the ring with you.
Yeah, and actually, over the last couple of days, obviously Roman Reigns has decided not to do WrestleMania, and there's
a few others as well.
Yeah,
Dana Brooke was one as well.
Yeah, Dana Brooke apparently. So the protocol that the WWE has taken throughout all of this is, I guess they're checking temperatures and they're getting talent to be assessed by doctors as soon as they enter the performance center. Like, again, they're not doing COVID-19 tests because we all know that the U.S. is struggling to get tests right now. But yeah, I think Dana Brooke's story was that she had a temperature higher than, like, I guess 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and they just sent her home. And Rey Mysterio, same thing. So Roman Reigns has opted not to do WrestleMania because, as you know, he did battle leukemia. And
which I don't think anybody can really blame him in that situation.
Yeah, right? And I was even surprised when he did the first show, to be honest. Being the son of a parent that's gone through cancer, like, was always my fear in regards to. My mom was like, hey, you need to stay home. Like, honestly, you do not want to play around regardless of what your job is. And I remember seeing Roman on that first segment. I was like, dude, this guy is really risking it. I don't know. Ben, what do you think?
Well, you know what? WrestleMania is like the big payout for these guys too, right? And you got to think, if everything's shut down for 3 months and they're not working for 3 months, you have to take the payout at WrestleMania, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that's financially, wrestlers are, in a little bit of trouble like everybody else. So that is probably a big factor in a lot of people wanting to do it. And it's also sending like a really bad message though to the world. Like, every sports league is shut down and then these cameramen and editors and everyone in the video crew, Jeff, you would know, like, there's a big crew and they have to work together, and then wrestlers have to work together, and then, like, it's just sending a message like, we're here to entertain you, but we don't care if people get sick, like, and it's weird. AEW is doing the same thing too, right? And it's a little weird. And I know they're trying to empty arenas, but, like, you still have to, how to make a TV show. It's not, you can't make an empty arena TV show. You have to have crew and cameramen and just everything. So it's just, I don't know. It's like a weird message. You know what they could do? They could just show the best of WrestleMania and have, like, pop-up videos, or have the wrestlers do director's commentary about that match.
Totally.
And it'd be just as interesting. Show Shawn versus The Undertaker and have them both comment on it in a room. I'd watch that. Like,
one of my favorite episodes of Raw ever was when I think they got, like, a major snowstorm, so they had to take everybody to Stamford, and, like, that was when I think they're building Brock and Roman. And I remember it was like an awesome sort of segment with, like, Paul Heyman talking to Roman and Brock's in the room. And I remember just thinking, like, this is kind of cool. Like, it's kind of different, and it's not what we usually expect from a Monday Night Raw each week. And it really adds that emphasis of storytelling and being able to, rely on promos to sell matches. And like, to your point, Ben, like, I was sort of hoping for the same thing. Like, I think there is a good opportunity now. Like, what I would have done is, hey, if you really want to do WrestleMania, I would have maybe dedicated an episode of Raw or an episode of SmackDown really building up the key matches. Like, I would have done a Raw where it's like, hey, we're going to focus on Randy and Edge, and they're going to show, like, their previous matches. They're going to show some Rated RKO
the history of it.
And, like, cool. Really, like, rely on that versus, hey, we're going to get these guys in an empty performance center, cut a promo in front of a fake audience. And again, like, I do love some of the interviews that we're seeing, but after watching last night's SmackDown and even kind of knowing some of the news and the fact that this SmackDown was taped a few days ago, and the Roman Reigns stuff wasn't addressed. Like, I was really like, for the first time in a long time, I was really kind of tuned out. I was like, I don't know. I'm just like, I'm finding it hard to watch. Like, are you guys still going to watch WrestleMania next week, just out of curiosity, or has the empty arena shows kind of made you a little jaded?
I mean, I think I definitely am. It's still WrestleMania, but it's not WrestleMania.
Yeah.
I would have been more happy if they postponed it. But I understand it. Like, as a business, they've built up to this moment. They can't delay it. So I think the smartest thing they can do, and I know this is what AEW was planning to do before the Rochester show got shut down.
Yeah.
They AEW wanted to get to their Blood and Guts pay-per-view and then just shut down.
Yeah.
For like 3 months.
I heard Jericho talk about that this week too, and I think that would have been, that's kind of cool. Like, I think.
Yeah, leave it on a cliffhanger. Leave it like it's a season finale, and then go from there.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if that's what WWE's planning to do with WrestleMania. It's yet to be seen, but I think they're probably going to continue because they have the Performance Center. They can.
Yeah, and apparently they've already filmed. Well, before they filmed WrestleMania, they filmed the Raw after WrestleMania, which I thought was
so wild.
I was like, I'd love to see that. How that ended up. But rumor has it that they're hoping, I think by April 10th, which I believe is Easter Good Friday, they want to do a live SmackDown again. And I don't know, man. I don't know. Yeah, it just doesn't feel right.
It doesn't feel right. No, it's especially for like if you're going to a wrestling event right now. Like, do you want to be at a wrestling event right now when you're squished beside somebody in a small chair? Like, no, nobody wants to be that close to each other right now.
Yeah.
Just walking down the street, you'll be like, you have to walk around somebody. You know?
Dude, I had to do that yesterday, just going out for my walk because like the weather was nice. Like, I saw someone really nice coming towards me, and I literally started walking on the road. Like,
you go 6 feet out of the way to go around them.
And I almost like acknowledged them too. Like, it's like, oh yeah, we're both social distancing, but we get it. And
yes.
I don't know, man. It's nuts. If you guys could, like, if WrestleMania was postponed, how would you have gone about that? Like, what would have been the time that you would have done WrestleMania, and what would you do to kind of fill the content in between? Maybe Ben, this is a question for you, being that you're a writer.
Well, NXT did something with Johnny Wrestling and Ciampa. They did like a whole 45-minute history of their feud, right? And I think that was pretty interesting. And like, first off, Ciampa, I don't know, you attacked Johnny and you're the good guy after you did. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me how you justify. Yeah, I was going to be out for a year, so I decided to cripple you too. And then like, as the good guy, and you're like, well, that doesn't. John seems to be in the right here. You know that. I don't know. You just have to do more interview and storytelling, and it's almost more like Lucha Underground, or like just kind of. And I don't think Vince likes that because he didn't create it, but make it more TV show style and make it less wrestling and maybe a little more storytelling and character telling and character creation, and then bulk shoot a whole bunch of stuff, because I think that's the key. I don't think you know how bad it's going to get in like 3 months, or in Florida, who knows, right? So, but I'd bulk shoot a lot of stuff and make it more Lucha Underground-y.
And that's what I find the most interesting, is I think there's going to come a time where these guys are not going to be able to shoot anything. Like, I think that's inevitable, and I wouldn't be surprised if that even happens, after WrestleMania, where all of a sudden, we get the Raw after WrestleMania, but that SmackDown doesn't take place, and what do you do, right? Do you start showing those WrestleMania matches on live TV? But I don't know, man. Like, I almost feel like it's almost becoming like a recurring joke. Like, I got friends that don't watch wrestling, and they were just flipping through the channels, and I was like, oh, I popped like Monday Night Raw on, like, for the first time in a long time, and I noticed that they're like still doing shows, and they're like in an empty arena, and it's like, like, has popularity gone down? Like, it's like there's this whole perception thing. And I'm like, no, they're still doing shows during this time. And then the look of concern and disgust on their face was hilarious. But
you guys have a reason why they don't light it like Madison Square Gardens or like during basketball, where it's all dark except for the spotlight on the ring? Because just to draw attention away from an empty arena would help it immensely, and just make it more theatrical and make it like a play or something. Take away the suspension of disbelief of like, okay, this is happening.
Yeah.
Have close-up shots and just light it better, because it looks horrible seeing empty seats.
I've noticed like every single match they've been doing, they've been adding guest commentary just to have more audio over more crowd noise. Because it is super awkward when you hear like entrance music and there's just no reaction, just nothing.
And the wrestlers are still calling for a reaction too. Like, like Daniel Bryan's still doing the yes chant.
He's still the pyro is the funny. It's setting off pyro, and you just like, why are you setting off pyro?
I love the Edge entrance from a few weeks ago where they gave him his little like smoke, and he's just like still standing there, and I'm like, oh my god, it's almost like when you're playing wrestling as a kid, like in your basement.
I do think AEW is having fun with it. I don't think WWE is having fun with it. That's the difference. That's the thing. AEW is acknowledging the situation. Be like, this is the world. We're doing our best to entertain you. And WWE is like, things are going on as normal, right? Like
nothing's different. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because this week WWE took a page out of AEW's book and they changed the position of the camera. Yeah. Which, again, I remember when I tuned into Dynamite that first time that they did an empty arena show. I turned to my wife. I'm like, this is actually palatable, like to an extent. Like, obviously, there's no fans. I wasn't too happy with the wrestlers being in the audience because I thought, okay, like that there's no social distancing happening there, obviously. And again, I get the environment you're trying to create. But I'm like, at least they darkened everything. They're really focusing on the presentation versus WWE where you see the empty seats. And I think now they've added like these LED screens like in place of the seats. So I don't know, maybe for WrestleMania they're going to have a fake crowd. Who knows? But
hologram.
Just hologram crowd. That would be incredible.
Dude, I mean, honestly.
If they want to do something new and different and innovative, they should do that. It would be weird as hell.
They have a week. And that's the thing. Like, they have a week on this footage. I would just.
It's true.
I don't know. I also feel like you'll probably get the best Undertaker match in like years because they have time to edit it down. And
that's a good point. There are some benefits to it not being live.
I like it's called a boneyard match because you don't want to call it a casket match because it'll bring attention to all the dead people in the world. I'm like, really? You're in a cemetery?
Is that really what it came down to? Is it actually going to be a casket?
Yeah.
It's a boneyard?
Yeah. Apparently AJ Styles on his Mixer account, which I don't know. They said another. I'm not familiar with Mixer. I guess it's another version of Twitch.
It's the same thing as like Twitch. Yeah.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah, he had said that was the reason why they called it that because they didn't want to draw any attention to.
Well, I mean, fair enough.
Makes sense. Yeah, but
you're just gonna do it in a cemetery and have an Undertaker bury a man in a coffin. Don't worry about it.
That's fine.
Would you got
an Undertaker pre-recorded match that's edited? I think I'm down for that. Like,
yeah, me too, man.
They have so much room to do new things with that, especially in like a boneyard match where you're not going to have a ring. I'd assume there's a lot of
fire come up, and you can have Kane commit. Yeah. You can have like ghosts. It'd be like Bray Wyatt's Funhouse, but
yeah.
And ideally, Bray Wyatt should have fought the Undertaker.
Oh, I know, and I would have let them do it for like an hour. Like I would have done like a straight presentation around that. And honestly, hey, if this works out for Taker, this could be his new thing, right? He could do like these matches that are more, cinematic or even Bray, right? Like I'm excited to see what they do with this Firefly Funhouse match. I wasn't too happy with the Randy Orton match they did a few years ago.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, that one was a weird one. That's after he burned the compound.
Yeah.
Didn't they do like the centipedes on the ring, like project the video and
Yeah, that was a lot of projection. Yeah, that was very odd.
At least they tried though, right? Like,
you
credit for trying.
True.
Yeah, that was when Randy had the little snake like viper entrance, but everyone said it looked like sperm.
Yeah,
it was walking down.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like Randy acknowledged that too. Last thing on this, if you guys had the option to postpone WrestleMania, when would you do it?
I mean, do you delay it to SummerSlam? I think that's probably what the question would be. Like, I think by August, maybe things are better, and that's probably a safe enough date that they could go with it and have enough time to build it. But I don't know, from a business standpoint, maybe they would want it earlier. But the other thing is, are people going to want to travel after this?
That's true too. Yeah,
and who's going to have money to travel? To be honest,
absolutely.
Yeah, I have a feeling coming out of this, I think pro wrestling, even I think live sports in general, is just going to look completely different. Like,
yeah,
they could be looking at doing these empty arena shows, or even, I don't know, if it gets safe to have 50 people in a room again, like they're probably going to be doing a lot of these intimate shows for probably the foreseeable future. Like, I feel like probably until the end of this year, maybe, like, just to be on the safe side. I don't know. A lot of questions when it comes to that. Do you guys watch UFC at all?
No, I don't really.
Have you? But regardless of that, have you guys been paying attention to Dana White and how he's also he wants to make money, right? So yeah. It's he had a funny interview in Yahoo a few days ago where he literally said that if he dies, he dies. So
all right,
that's
Dana.
The mentality of some of these guys, right? Are you still like training at home? Like, what's your regime looking like? Or are you just using this time to chill out?
I've been working out at home, really. I mean, it's the only thing I can do. I've been going for daily walks. I have a forest that's right by my house, so I can go do
awesome,
that. Awesome, but obviously, I can't do any wrestling training because that's social distancing. So
yeah. What's some of your colleagues like? Are they doing the same thing? Do you have anyone like thinking about starting like a podcast or a business on the side? Like, I know
a ton of people have started Twitch streaming for gaming and whatnot, but I mean, in terms of like wrestling, there's not much we can really do other than just wait this out.
Yeah. And that's the one thing that I would say that's been coming up a lot is just the future of independent wrestling coming out of this too. Is again, you guys obviously don't have the luxury of some of these WWE wrestlers that have a steady paycheck, and I would almost equate with what you guys do similar to what a lot of MMA fighters are going through right now too, where when you don't have that. So when you have that uncertainty regarding when that next gig's coming up, it's like, how else do you kind of go about keeping afloat, right? So
essentially, because you keep a routine. Because I would do certain things Monday to Friday, then wrestle Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But when you don't have that, I mean, what do you do, right?
Yeah, exactly. But just to switch things up to a lighter note, obviously, there's nothing we can do. WrestleMania will be taking place next week. It's actually going to be hosted by Rob Gronkowski. You guys football guys or no?
Yes.
Oh, you are? Okay.
As a Bills fan, I hate it. But...
are you a Bills fan because of proximity?
I grew up it's the one game we'd always see because of Toronto and Buffalo, right? So I love Buffalo. I love the Bills. So grew up big Bills fan. So
it's a shame. I kind of wish the Bills loved Toronto because I know they hated playing here.
It sucked here. It sucked in Toronto. It was the wrong venue for it, but.
Yeah, no, totally. But I thought it'd be kind of cool if we could switch the conversation up, and I'd love to get your guys' theories on who you think is the true Mr. WrestleMania. Now, this is a common debate. I think, amongst different circles, you usually have a lot of individuals that like to bring up who they think is the guy when it comes to WrestleMania and is able to put on some show-stopping performances, has a really deep legacy when it comes to the event. In some cases, has had an array of main events or show-stealing matches to their legacy that really stand out when it comes to the event. And a lot of what they do at the event really adds to who they are in their careers as well. And I'd love to get some of your takes, and maybe we'll go one by one. And again, I think before I reached out to you guys, to make this happen, when I sent you guys an email, I did kind of put a few questions in there for you guys to answer as well. But, maybe we'll get started and maybe we'll just break this out by age. So, Ben, we'll get you to go first.
All right. I'm the oldest one. So I'm going to pick the oldest wrestler. No. Well, I figure, so here's the debate. Everyone, obviously, when you say, as soon as you said, who is Mr. WrestleMania, your instant thought is Undertaker. Right? Like if you say, who's Mr. Monday Night, you'll say Rob Van Dam, But if you say, who's the wrestler WrestleMania, it's Undertaker. And then you start thinking, who else could it be? And then there's Shawn Michaels, there's Edge, there's maybe, whoever. And I'm going to go, I took some thought in this, I'm going to go with the one that everyone's going to hate, Hulk Hogan.
Hulk Hogan, oh wow.
But just look at when I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking iconic moments at WrestleMania, and everyone who's a wrestling fan remembers Hulk slamming Andre, Hulk versus Ultimate Warrior, Hulk and Mr. T teaming up, creating basically WrestleMania. There wouldn't be any WrestleMania without Hulk Hogan, and then Hulk versus The Rock, which is anyone in Toronto, everyone says they were at that event, and it was like the most electrifying thing you could ever see. And I just think Hulk, was in the first 8 of the 9 WrestleManias and maybe main evented like 7 or 6 of them. And I just don't think without him there wouldn't be like he drove 1, 2, and 3. Basically, he got all the basically the pay-per-view sales when and everything. And I think in terms of moments, like Shawn Michaels is great, but he wrestles great all the time. Like he's Mr. SummerSlam, he's Mr. Money in the Bank, he's Mr. Everything. And I just think Hulk Hogan always had these iconic moments, and he drew the crowds like in a way that I don't think anyone was really thinking like, oh, I can't wait for this Undertaker match in the mid card at whatever. Oh, he's fighting Jake the Snake, which I love Jake the Snake, but like ideally you're not going to be like, oh, it's going to draw like every average fans.
Yeah.
See, and I think drawing the average fan is what WrestleMania tries. It's like their Super Bowl. So the Super Bowl gets like everyone to watch it, even if you're not a football fan. I think WrestleMania gets everyone to watch it, even if you're not a wrestling fan, just for the spectacle and the guests and everything. I think Hulk Hogan at the time was the most big name wrestler in the world, and it still is a name. But like just those moments, like especially with The Rock and Andre the Giant, I could remember those moments. And so I think it was Hogan.
Yeah. So you're saying,
Ben, did you go to?
Weren't great. They were just emotional.
And that was actually my next question to you too. Was it based on? So you're probably basing Hogan based on legacy and moments that he's provided. Yeah. Right. Cool. Actually, Vaughn, you were saying something earlier.
Oh, I was just curious. Did you go to WrestleMania 18? Were you there for Rock
Yes,
and Hogan?
I was there.
Yeah, me too. Okay. Me too. I was in the 500 section, but it was no matter where you were, it was just a crazy atmosphere.
I was backstage. My friend worked at WWF Canada at the time.
Oh, Carl DeMarco?
Got us backstage. and then we were at this like event backstage, and there's this giant Brock Lesnar, like before he even debuted, he was like just sitting there. I was like, who's that guy wearing sweatpants? And like he's so wide, and he's just like sitting by himself in the corner. I'm like, that guy's like, he looks like he's gonna kill me. But
yeah, I remember being at the Fan Access that year, and I walked by a Brock Lesnar Randy Orton match. Didn't really care.
that was an Access match going on.
That was Access that year. If you watched Access, you got Brock, you got Randy, you got Batista.
All OVW guys then.
Yeah, it was all OVW. You had like Rico. I remember seeing him, but he wasn't Rico. Yeah, he was Rico Constantino. Yeah, you had a bunch of these guys, and I remember like it was kind of cool because then you had that going on, but then like in between, and I remember like I think back to this now because I feel like I really didn't appreciate it because I was like in grade 8 at the time I think, but like there was like a big. I remember watching like this big interview segment with the Mr. Perfect. He came out. And he was just like playing with the crowd, like making fun of everybody. And then the Big Boss Man came out. And at the time, I was like, oh, it's a Big Boss Man. Like he's like in his whatever gear. But
yeah,
now I think back, I'm like, that was like a crazy moment because that's like 90s WWF, like right in front of my face that like people were just kind of hanging out, not really appreciating it. So, but yeah, no, that's interesting, Ben, that you went with Hogan. You know what? I see what you're saying. I think for me, obviously Hogan is my guy too when it came to when I grew up and really became a fan and I was a big Hulkamaniac. But I don't know. I think as I became a more mature wrestling fan, I think work rate really stood out to me. And that's why I decided to go with Shawn Michaels. Like, I think Shawn Michaels was that one guy that you could always count on to have that not only that really good match, but that really emotional match. Like one match that stands out in my mind that I thought was not going to be good, but he actually made it good was against Vince McMahon at WrestleMania 22. Like he made that enjoyable and it went to show like dude had his emotions intact. He was able to get a good match out of just about anybody. I think back to the back-to-back matches with Undertaker and just how emotionally invested you got in those matches. The Iron Man match, like that was, I would say, like, how old was I when that took place? I think I was like not even 10 years old. And I remember like being captivated by that 1 hour. And really, I think that match really allowed me to appreciate long matches that were building up and really telling some stories. And again, man, like I feel like, he similar to Hogan. Hogan had that run where he was like consistent for like the first 9 WrestleManias, and then he took a break and then came back. And was able to get things going for 18 and 19. I think you look at Michaels had a good run, came back after his hiatus, and then even had an even better run for like 5 or 6 years. And yeah, I think there's like nobody like him. So I'm going to go with Sean. And, I think a match that really stands out kind of in his second run is him and Angle from 21. Like, I remember just watching that all the time when that came out and just loving it.
Him and Angle was phenomenal, but did you know that him and Angle was supposed to be him and Guerrero?
Oh, really? Okay, so I heard that it was supposed to be him and Guerrero for 22.
I think it was 20. Oh, maybe it was 22.
Because I remember
21.
Then. Did you listen to the Bruce Pritchard podcast when he talked about it? Yeah. That dude. Even I watched. Did you guys watch Dark Side of the Ring this week? I'm assuming you guys did.
Yeah.
We can talk about that too if you guys want, maybe later. But if Guerrero and Michaels would have been just money,
it would have been phenomenal. I don't think they touched it at all in WWE.
No, I think they maybe touched like in a
maybe
rumble,
like a tag or a rumble. But I mean, that really doesn't count. That doesn't.
Yeah.
The whole theory on it. Interesting enough, I actually picked Michaels as well.
Oh, okay.
I knew it.
Wow.
Although, I'd wager possibly one of the greatest WrestleMania performers of all time, Fandango, might be a better option, as he beat Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
Michaels, I think, is a very safe bet because of his consistency. I mean, you look at the names he's wrestled over the years, and as to your point, like, the fact that after his hiatus, he did just get better, and he had those matches with Angle and Flair and Taker. Like, all these matches stand the test of time. And I think consistency is probably one of the most important factors that you should put into, declaring him Mr. WrestleMania.
Yeah, no,
in WWE.com, they have the top 35 WrestleMania matches. He's in 5 of the top 10.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah.
And how many is Hogan in the entire list?
He's number 11 with Rock.
Okay.
The first one is Undertaker, Shawn Michaels.
Yep.
Oh,
WrestleMania 25, right?
Yeah, 25, right? Yeah. I might actually go back and watch that today, man. That's a match that, hey, if they put that on a Monday Night Raw like next week, I'd watch it. Like that match to me was one of the reasons why you became a wrestling fan. Is just the storytelling, the work rate.
Absolutely.
And it's surprising none of us chose Undertaker. Why did you guys choose Undertaker?
I thought you were going to take the Undertaker, so
yeah.
For the sake of an argument, Also, I just think like he hasn't been in the main event of a lot of WrestleManias, right?
That's fair.
Like he's with Shawn Michaels in one. I guess that was the main event, co-main event.
Yeah, that would have been WrestleMania 25. I believe they were co-main event, but they were main event for 26.
26, yeah, the rematch, which I totally agree with because like that was the hottest match that year.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no way you could have closed with McMahon Hart.
And for me, when I actually first started watching wrestling was about 2006, and the first WWE pay-per-view I actually ordered was Rumble 07, and it ended with Michaels and Taker, fighting for about 10 minutes to end the Rumble. So when they finally did Taker and Michaels, I was like ecstatic as a fan.
Yeah, it felt like it definitely felt like a dream match because you had like the Streak versus a guy that has kick-ass performances.
Absolutely.
And I remember, I love the whole dark versus light.
Yes.
Angle that they did with that too.
And even the promo video they aired for 26, I go back and watch all the time.
Oh, dude, that was amazing.
So good. I think it's the best WrestleMania promo package in history.
Next to My Way with Limp Bizkit. And
okay, My Way's the safe bet. My Way's the safe bet.
Dude, I still watch the My Way one, and I'm like this. I remember as a kid being like, "Oh my god, I want to see this match so bad." I was also a big Limp Bizkit fan at that time too. I had the red New York Yankees hat backwards. But yeah.
Oh,
everyone loves Fred Durst.
When Fred Durst had so much street cred. But yeah, why don't you, Ben? Why don't you choose Undertaker?
I just thought you guys would take the Undertaker. Also, It's pretty obvious he's Mr. WrestleMania, right? Because here's a reason why you would pick him. Because when he made angles out of WrestleMania, and other wrestlers never did, like his angle was WrestleMania. Try and beat the streak. So he didn't even need to have a big rivalry. He could just his whole, from a writing perspective, it's just like I have a streak at WrestleMania. That's my story. That's my emotional beat. And I think that's why he's sort of Mr. WrestleMania, because he kind of owns it. And I don't think any other wrestler has, like, oh man, he doesn't need a title. He has a streak. So he basically has the WrestleMania title, i.e. his streak, right? So that's why when he loses at WrestleMania, it's like the biggest things ever. And if a champion loses his belt at WrestleMania, it's whatever. But if Undertaker ever loses it, so the emotional of every match is so heightened that somebody might beat him. We'll CM Punk beat him. Well, will Flair beat him? Well, like Shawn Michaels, everyone was, those matches made, he didn't have a title on the line, but it made it more exciting because he's going to break the streak. Who cares, really?
Yeah.
You did care because it meant something. And I think that's why he's kind of Mr. WrestleMania just by default, because you just tuned in to see him try and win or lose, and then they meant more than anything at WrestleMania than any other card.
Do you guys feel like the streak should have ended? Maybe I'll ask you.
Not to Brock, maybe.
Yeah.
Was there anybody you guys thought was going to end it before Brock? Because you thought Michaels, eh? I thought Batista was going to end it.
You thought Batista? I'd heard Batista was rumor. There was like this old rumor that he wanted Kurt Angle to break it.
Interesting.
And I remember Randy was supposed to break it, I think at 21, but then they didn't go with it. I think that had to do with maybe just some backstage stuff because Randy wasn't mature enough, I guess. But
yeah,
I don't know, man. It's funny because I think back now, and I don't know if Brock was the right guy to break it because Brock seems to get everything given to him.
He didn't
need it. He didn't need it. And I almost feel like if the streak somehow continued, especially now with Taker still wrestling in this sort of state that he's in, I think it'd be more captivating because now you're getting close to someone actually breaking it. I think maybe Roman should have broken it, to be honest. Like, I feel like when Roman beat him a few years ago, it just was kind of, okay, the match was not good.
It would have been a good opportunity to make Roman full heel. Not that would
totally.
Do that. But, the crowd would have been so angry. And they were angry when he won. But, if they left that for him, it would have been a way bigger deal.
Yeah, because I don't know, and I remember when the streak was broken. Like, I had people that I didn't even know that were wrestling fans, like writing op-eds on it. Like,
yep,
someone wrote an article about McMahon, like he ruined 21 years of a legacy or something like that. And I was like, dude, I had no idea that you were such a big wrestling fan. But
it worked though. Right? People talk about it. So
that's the thing. We all still remember it, and everyone's gonna remember that forever. Everyone kind of remembers where they were when that happened.
Yeah,
one of those moments.
And it was shock. It was like a real shock to everyone watching because you're like, there's no way he's losing. Brock. And then
it was one of the few wrestling moments where I literally jumped out of my couch and I was like, "Are you serious?"
And that's why it worked.
Good or bad,
right?
That's important.
Yeah,
it worked. And I think if we're talking about it, and it's shocking and it created controversy, and Eric Bischoff says it creates money that way. But, from a storytelling standpoint, it was smart. It gave Paul Heyman something to talk about with Brock,
yeah, it gave Brock something over everybody else.
Yeah,
I think Brock. Yeah, I think Paul Heyman tried to use it a couple years ago when Roman and Brock fought again. They were like, "You guys, we're the two, and that beat the Undertaker at WrestleMania." But yeah, to your point, it is sort of that accolade that they always go back to. Do you feel like what my biggest challenge? The reason why I didn't go with Undertaker is I feel, honestly, despite him being this legend, I do feel like he needs to hang it up. I it's gone to the point. And I remember watching that Roman Reigns match and just not getting into it. And I was just thinking this dude is done. He needs to stop. And even they gave him that awesome send off where he took off his gear and just disappeared. Ring, yeah. But then he came back a year later. I think my whole thing is now that when he's at WrestleMania, and I think this kind of started with the Shane McMahon match as well, where you're like, dude, what are you doing this for? Why are you ruining sort of that 5-year? I know it's pretty simple. You guys are making the money signs, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like he's kind of tarnished his legacy in my eyes a little bit, which is why I can't go with him as Mr. WrestleMania. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think in 10 years you'll look back and be like, yeah, he's Mr. WrestleMania. But right now he's fighting a useless feud with AJ Styles that really doesn't do anything for anybody, really.
I was looking forward to that.
Cool. It's cool on paper, but I mean, really, it's not. AJ Styles versus Taker in 2008 would have been incredible.
Yeah.
But today it's a completely different story and a completely different match.
That match is, I'm actually sad is not like happening in a real ring. So I wanted to see if AJ could have gone a good one out of him, and I feel like Taker.
I believe he probably could have though.
I think so too.
AJ's incredible at getting good matches out of pretty much anybody, and especially as a heel.
Oh, totally. But Vaughn, why didn't you go with Undertaker?
I don't know. I maybe because, truthfully, I haven't seen a lot of the earlier Undertaker matches. I only really caught, probably from 05 on, and then I caught, a few WrestleManias from before that. But maybe, I don't know, I don't feel as personally invested with Taker as I do with a guy like Michaels or Jericho. And I think that's just what I enjoy in wrestling, really. I don't know if I get attached to characters that are, kind of beyond wrestling in that sense, like, more over the top than anything.
Yeah, more of the pomp and circumstance rather than the work rate, I guess, or...
Yeah, I've always been more of a work rate guy. But, I mean, I still love The Undertaker, but it's just... I don't know, I just feel like there's a lot of guys who can be held in that conversation of WrestleMania.
Yeah.
He's your favorite wrestler, too, right?
What's that?
Isn't Shawn Michaels your favorite wrestler?
Michaels and Jericho are two of my favorite wrestlers.
Right. And you kind of wrestle similarly to Shawn, yes. I would imagine, right? Like little high flying.
When I'm a babyface, I take a lot from Shawn. I take a lot from Jericho. So.
You do kip ups? Do a lot of kip ups, right?
I actually don't do too many kip ups.
No.
It's funny. I feel like Drew McIntyre has adopted the kip up now.
Yeah, that's his thing now.
With his little countdown and
yeah, I don't know how I feel about the countdown, but the crowd got into it. So what do I know?
Yeah, exactly. One last thing on this: who, in your eyes, will be a future contender for Mr. WrestleMania? Or is that not even a thing now?
Seth Rollins, probably.
Seth?
Yeah, probably Rollins. That's a good point.
That promo he cut on Kevin Owens on Monday, like.
Great.
He's had a pretty his WrestleMania track record is pretty impressive, to be honest.
Well, didn't Randy Orton just do that crazy RKO on him in WrestleMania?
That was 31. No, 30. I think it was 31.
That was 31. Yeah.
Same one. Seth cashed in. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like Seth's a good contender. Like I think when you look at his body of work, like that Orton match was good. Match with Hunter 33 was decent. That three-way at 34 with Finn and Miz was really good.
That was a really good opener, yeah.
Yeah. Like I think Seth's a good contender. Why didn't you guys go with John Cena? And this is a question for Vaughn.
I think for me, I don't know, Cena was just never really my guy. He was always like I don't know, I've never really been the guy who necessarily cares about the main events as much as I care about more like the work rate match. And the Cena match was never always, the work rate match. I mean, he's had plenty of great WrestleMania matches. He's also had ones that were, not as good.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's another thing where I just don't feel as personally attached to Cena as I do other guys.
Yeah, it's funny when you think about like Hogan, Austin, Cena, and I guess if you want to throw Roman in there too, considering the era that we live in now. I think like Cena hasn't had those moments, to your point, Ben, that Hogan's had. Austin has a few. Like I think when Austin beat Michaels, that was a moment because it's like
Bret Hart. That Bret Hart.
Oh, Bret, yeah. Sorry, yeah. 13,
That's the match I've seen probably at WrestleMania.
13 was big, and then the year later, finally kind of starting the Austin era, and then even I would say that last match he had with The Rock, where you knew it was his last match, was a bit of a moment too, because The Rock finally beat him. But
Cena had a good match. It was against Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, exactly. It was 23. Yeah. I mean, he's had other good matches, but
I guess the only moment he had was against The Rock, but then he lost that.
Well, him winning the title, I guess, against JBL.
Yeah. But I guess it can be classified as that, but no, but this has been fun, guys. Any other thoughts on? Actually, wait. One last question. Who's Mrs. WrestleMania?
Oh,
I'm trying to think. Who's had the most WrestleMania matches?
Yeah. Was it? Ooh. I
mean, arguably, right now it might be Charlotte Flair.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
I rewatched that Asuka match because they showed it on Raw. And that was an awesome match then, and still is now.
Match. Even the three-way they had with Becky and Sasha, like I don't think anybody expected them to kill it like they did, and arguably that might have been the best match of that WrestleMania, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, they could bring Ronda back for every WrestleMania, and then she'll become Mrs. WrestleMania, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think I'd prefer that. I like Ronda.
Yeah, she's like she's like Brock. You can't take your eyes off a Brock match, right? And whenever Brock's on, I'm like, oh, this is going to be. I'm not looking forward to it. But then when it happens, I'm like, this is fantastic.
Your expectations are always set. Yeah.
I kind of feel like Trish should be in that conversation too. Then no, like two matches that stood out for Trish were there was that triple threat she had in 19 with I think Victoria and Jazz, which was good. And then Trish and Mickie James from 22 was also a fun one too.
What about that Snooki tag match?
Oh, okay, well, all right, never mind. On that note, I guess we'll end this on a bit of a low. But
I'm here for the lows. Let's be honest.
Hey man, we appreciate it. No, I want to thank you guys for joining us here at Talk WrestleMania. Maybe we'll continue the conversation on social media when WrestleMania takes place. Is there anything that you're looking forward to next week when it comes to WrestleMania that
Seth Owens? It should be a good match.
Seth Owens. I'm looking forward to Bryan and Zayn.
Yeah, me too. I feel like if you're guys like those two, like you'll thrive in that environment to do something really cool. Absolutely. Yeah.
Nobody said Drew McIntyre, Brock Lesnar, or Goldberg and Strowman. That's
Can Brock get in the
spoiler alert?
Hey, spoilers! Yeah, I didn't know that.
I don't know. I just assume it's Strowman because he has nothing to do on the card, and I guess if Roman's not there, who would be the logical choice? Ray?
Can't be Ray.
I guess it's gonna be an interesting show. I don't know. I'm looking forward to it.
I think it might be better to not really have expectations for this and just
I think so too. Yeah, that might be it. And again, I think obviously we know what's been going on over the last few weeks, but it's still WrestleMania, so I'm hoping that it has some type of special element to it. Because if it's something like a Monday Night Raw, I don't know.
Bray will be good. Bray and Cena will bring it. I think they'll have a great a cinematic match.
Yes. Yeah, same with Edge and Orton, because Edge and Orton's been my favorite feud.
Yeah, it's emotional, right? It makes sense. You want to see Edge kill Randy, right? So that's a good feud. I don't know. Goldberg and Roman wasn't going to be a great match anyway, so
yeah, I feel like that you really needed the crowd. You need your Rock Hogan atmosphere.
You also know what that match is going to be. You know it's going to be like 5 minutes long. And just so many spears.
Yeah. Actually, wait. If you're spoiler alert. Do you think Goldberg should beat Braun?
I think at this point, with everything so messed up, you may as well just give Braun the title.
You think so?
Yeah, and then have Roman beat Strowman because they've always had that feud that they've never really resolved.
They never really paid it off. Yeah. Point.
Or do you make Goldberg beat Braun and then you save Roman Goldberg for SummerSlam when you actually can have it in front of an audience?
I just don't think Goldberg will appear in a lot of Raws afterwards. I don't think the contract has him appearing at every Raw for the next 3 months, where Strowman can do interviews and set up a feud at least, right? But
yeah. Should be interesting. I can't wait to watch it. Before we conclude, let's do a quick round table of some plugs. Ben, what do you where can people reach out to you, or what are you working on? Because I definitely messed that up earlier.
Oh, I'm working on some kid shows I can't talk about until they're on the air, but my band Beast Music has their album coming out next April 2nd.
So, nice, man. Nice.
So check it out at whatever, Spotify or whatever. And we also have a thing where if you donate $25 or more to charity, any charity, and send us a receipt of it, we'll send you a free vinyl copy of the record.
Oh, sweet, man. Awesome. What kind of music is it?
It's kind of like a post-punk, death disco rock kind of feel.
So, like it. Yeah. I'll have to take a look. Send me a link.
I'm at Anaconda if you want to see me. Tweet at me or whatever. I'm around.
Yeah, and you have a brief cameo in a David Arquette documentary.
I'm like 2 seconds. I'm there for 2 seconds. I'm reacting to him getting waxed, so
even better.
My big moment.
It's like the recreation of the 4-year-old virgin scene, right?
It pretty much is what they went for there. But yeah, it was when you're that close to it, and you see someone getting there. Oh, it's really. And it wasn't the chest, you know.
Vaughn, what about you, man? Where can people reach you? And what do you like? Are you anything you want to promote sort of for the time being, or what?
Well, you can find me at no shows coming up because there's nothing running and there's no wrestling events happening. You can find me on Twitter at Vaughn, on Instagram at Vaughn Vertigo, on Facebook at Vaughn Vertigo, on YouTube at Vaughn Vertigo. I have a pro wrestling tee store, which is also Vaughn Vertigo, if you want to check out some merchandise.
Nice. Also, it's Vaughn VAUGHN.
Yes.
And you should check him out when he's wrestling. I've watched very many of your matches, and they're really great. And do you still team up?
Yeah. I team with Gabriel Fuerza as Fight or Flight as well.
Nice, man.
It's a great tag team too. He's a good guy too.
I feel like I think Ben's rocking one of your shirts as we speak.
So Ben's always been supporting me since college when he almost failed me.
I didn't fail you. I gave you a really good mark. You got the wrestler bump.
You made fun of me in front of the entire class because I forgot what's his face from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, what jersey he was wearing, and then I told you I was a wrestler. And my mark shot right up.
Yeah. I thought you had concussions, so I'm like, I'll get this guy.
I mean, I definitely have concussions. Yeah. Let's be honest. I got CTE.
That is hilarious. You guys are funny. No, thanks, guys. Thanks so much, guys, for joining us here at New Theory Radio. And we are going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back after this brief commercial message.
Theory Radio.
And we are back here on New Theory Radio on News Talk Saga 960 AM. My name is Nav Nanwa. I am your host, and this is the show where we theorize on all things current affairs, pop culture, and everyday life. And as you know, we are recording this show via quarantine live from my household, located in parts unknown, Ontario. But I'm very honored and pleased to be joined by my next guest. She is someone I'm very familiar with when it comes to the work that she does and the smarts that she has when it comes to different topics and specialties. She is a consultant currently on maternity leave, and I'm very honored to have her on the show. I have Anu Singh here joining us on New Theory Radio. Anu, thank you so much for being a guest.
Full disclaimer, I was forced to be on here.
You weren't forced to be on anything. But for those that are not familiar with Anu Singh, she is my wife as well as the mother of our daughter Nola, who I've talked about plenty of times on the show. And Anu, thanks so much for being a guest under these unique circumstances as we are officially in day 12 of our quarantine?
No, day 15.
Day 15? I've lost count.
Wait, is it Saturday?
Yes.
Oh, then, yeah, day 12.
It feels like one long day, to be honest.
It was Tuesday for some reason.
No. I don't know. I don't know when it started, but it's taking a while. But I thought it'd be good to have you on the show because I haven't been able to interview people in person. So being that you and I share a household, I thought this would be good to get back into interviewing people in person. Yeah. As we watch a very unique documentary on Death Row Records currently on BET. But yeah, I just wanted to, before we jump into some topics, I wanted to just understand, how are you finding this quarantine? Are you used to it? I think you told me a couple of days ago that you feel like you've been quarantining since November, which is when your mat leave started.
Yep.
But how have you been adjusting?
It's good to have you around, because before I would just talk to the baby, or talk to Nola. So it's good having somewhat of an adult around. Keyword somewhat.
Wow.
So
way to expose me in front of all my listeners.
So that's been a big positive. I think Nola really likes it when you're home. I think you noticed it too when you were working and you'd come home. She would not recognize you at first, and then she would look at me and give me the biggest smile, and then you'd get super jealous. But I think she...
And now I get the bigger smiles.
Yeah, sometimes, but she still loves me more. So it's good having you around. The other struggle is, as I'm sure it is for everybody else, I've been eating a lot.
Yes.
So have you. We literally made 15 peanut butter chocolate chip cookies yesterday.
And they're all gone.
And they're all gone today. 15. That means I ate 7 or 8.
I'm pretty sure I had more than.
Or you probably had the 8, yeah.
I was eating them quite a lot. Hey, it was my idea for you to make peanut butter and chocolate chip cookies, and you know, you are a fantastic cook, so you definitely delivered. And yeah, it's super tough when they're just sitting on the counter. And honestly, outside of working from home and hanging out with our daughter, there's nothing else to do but just eat and watch TV.
I think we've been cooking a lot, and lately in the last few days we have stopped watching a lot of news. I remember there'd be a few days when CP24 would be on the entire day, but now I make a conscious effort of just turning it off and putting Spotify on.
It just seems like the same thing over and over again. It's quite depressing, to be honest. And you know what? It's you know, common. It's like a common habit now that when we come downstairs, we want to see what's happening on CP24 and get the latest updates. But as we get those updates, it just becomes more and more depressing.
Yeah.
But
I do miss the gym. I feel like that was my one piece of sanity, to just get out and do something.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
I don't like working out by myself. I need a group environment. So because of this quarantine, I've definitely become more and more lazy when it comes to working out.
And then, as you mentioned that you work better in a group, I must say, you know, for those listening are probably wondering, hey, why don't you guys work out together? You know, I'm going to admit that I'm probably not the best workout partner in this type of situation. But you know what? I did try this week to try to get some physical fitness in. You know, I did some squats, some push-ups, some sit-ups. We have dumbbells sitting in the corner of our house that we
Is that a peanut butter cookie stain?
Yeah, it might be a peanut butter cookie stain, yeah. That's probably from you, though, not from me.
Wow. On our white couch.
It's okay. You can't really notice it. Sort of. But, you know what? Just because, like, I feel like it's so easy to focus on the negatives of this situation. I thought it'd be good to talk about some of the positives. And obviously, I think when it comes to what people are doing nowadays, being stuck indoors, there is obviously a lot of content that's being consumed. And I wanted to talk to you about that. I wanted to kind of understand, you know, you are on mat leave, so admittedly, and this isn't a knock at you, you do watch a lot more content than I do, because I still work during the day. So, you know, it's tough for me to really, you know, take in this. But then again, I do like the fact that I have work because it keeps me busy.
Yeah.
But what... like, actually, better yet, you know, we like to theorize here on New Theory Radio.
Do you?
What's your theory on the impact that all this content consumption is going to have on somebody once this is all over?
On somebody?
Yeah. Like, do you feel like at the end of this, do you feel like this is going to make people smarter?
No.
Less smart? You think? Do you find?
I think we were already consuming a lot of content, and now people are probably. You're right, they're consuming more content on Twitter or through TV or whatever medium that they chose to use. I think it's not just consuming content that's going to have an impact on people. I think it's what you do with that content. Mm-hmm. So I could sit here and watch 20 hours of, I don't know, The Godfather, And
or Lord of the Rings.
Or Lord of the Rings. And then there comes a point where you're just watching it for the sake of watching it. You're not watching it because you like to watch it. Mm-hmm. And I think before this quarantine started, people used to watch TV because they like to watch it. Versus just, oh, well, I've got nothing else to do, so I might as well just watch Planet Earth 52.
Well, it's like the idea of binge watching was something that I think people used to take as a luxury. Like people would be like, "Oh, I can't wait to sit down on my couch
and do nothing
and binge watch my favorite TV show." But now that when you're cooped inside and you almost have to do it because outside of taking up a new hobby or whatever, I find that despite some people looking at this quarantine as being an opportunity to learn a new skill or tap into a passion, I read an interesting tweet actually today. It was a tweet about how it's okay to not feel super ambitious as you're going through this quarantine because
like putting on your pants.
Well, I put my pants on.
I know you do. But all these memes all these posts on Instagram about how to feel more productive and how you should wake up in the morning and put a full face of makeup on and get dressed like you're actually going to work.
Yeah, I saw it.
Who are these people?
I don't know.
Like if you're working from home, you put outfits on that you wear at home, not when you go to work. I just find that so bizarre.
I do like the fact that some brands are and mainly on the retail side, they're trying to embrace it by saying, deck out your home gym, or here are some ways you can better your style at home, and they're trying to sell you luxurious sweatpants. Speaking of sweatpants sales are through the roof right now because if you want to get a pair of sweatpants, some nice ones from Amazon, you have to wait a month. But going back to that tweet, it was quite interesting because it was she pretty much said it's okay to feel anxious, it's okay to not want to do anything, it's okay to just hang out and munch a little bit because sometimes you need that time to not do anything to really take in this experience.
But I can tell you after a while it does get to you.
It totally does.
I remember once Nola was born, apart from just recovering from childbirth, by December I was pretty bored.
Yeah, you were. I remember you used to tell me every time I'd come home. And that's why I feel for obviously people like yourself who are on mat leave and are already we're kind of doing this. I also feel for that economic sort of group of people that are self-employed or the contract workers, and they truly do live gig to gig. Yeah. Like even I was talking to a couple of realtors, like it's tough right now. Mm-hmm. It's tough. Like they used to like right now is a time where they usually amp up on open houses and they like to get people ready for summer potential summer purchases, and all that's on the back burner. And yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting time for sure. Are you taking this time to potentially like reset anything? And I know that's something that you were thinking about. And that you and I talked about it quite a bit when you were heading into mat leave. Mm-hmm. That you were looking forward to the break. Although I put the word break in quotations because I don't know how much Nola gives you a break. But
she doesn't.
Is there any part of you that's looking at this as a bit of a reset, reflect moment?
Yeah, I definitely will be reflecting quite a bit. I just haven't had the chance to do that because our daughter only naps 30 minutes at a time, so
she's doing pretty good right now, I'll say that.
She's doing good in the night, but her naps are really bad, so I find that when it comes to thinking about that kind of stuff, you really need to dedicate time to it, and that kind of time only arrives after 9 o'clock, which is right now.
Yeah.
And by after 9, I'm usually deadbeat because I'm more of a morning person when it comes to thinking creatively like that and reflecting on things over coffee. And coffee time these days are with Nola on her playmat.
Yeah. she's your permanent coffee date right now.
She is my permanent coffee date. So, I don't know. I really do want to take that time to reflect on what is it I want to do and what things matter to me more now that Nola is here.
Mm-hmm.
So, career-wise, personal lives in terms of fitness and how to, I guess, get the little things in order. For example, during mat leave, I found this Instagram account called Clean Mama, where she really encourages you to do one cleaning task per day so that when it comes time for the weekend, you're not loaded with cleaning the whole house.
Yeah.
And
I've actually noticed you've been doing that. And I feel like when you put that target, when you put a realistic target to something, it feels a lot better when you complete it.
Yeah, it's not even so much realistic. It's more so, for me, it doesn't feel like such a big task anymore.
Yeah,
where
exactly.
it's like, oh my god, there goes my Saturday. I have to spend 6 hours cleaning the house.
Yeah.
Versus now, you just dedicate half an hour every single day, and you get your Sundays back or your Saturdays back.
Because I am not like that. I'm someone that has an overambitious task list.
Yeah, like spring cleaning.
Yeah, which
you've been telling me you'll be doing since 2 weeks ago.
I tried to do that today, but we'll see. There's always Sunday. But but I know what you mean. Like, I think that's the key in this type of situation, is creating those small goals for yourself each day. Like, I think about, like, the one challenge I've been having, especially when it comes to working from home, is when to turn work off, because it's so easy to simply, turn your laptop again at like 7 p.m.
Yeah. I actually don't know what that is, because when I was working, I would always have it on.
Yeah, you were a consultant, so your hours were crazy.
My
so I feel like I'm now
24/7.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would wake up at 4 a.m.
This was my first work week though, where it started to feel a little more normal, and even this weekend it's been good. Like, last weekend was not bad, but like last weekend I did work on some stuff. But that was sort of the first week of this new normal that we're facing, and that's where a lot of people are almost describing this experience as our new normal when it comes to things to get used to. But I don't want to continue highlighting the negatives of the situation, because there are some positives, and we did talk about sort of content consumption and the time that I do have to consume content. I typically try to consume it with you, unless it's wrestling, which you don't like watching, which is totally fine.
Yeah.
But we already talked about wrestling earlier with my good friends Ben Joseph and Vaughn Vertigo. So we won't talk about wrestling with you, because I have in a past life, in a past iteration of podcasts.
I would never talk about
I used to do we did a WrestleMania preview podcast with Anu a few years ago.
Yeah, another thing that I was forced into doing, which I had absolutely no opinion on.
Yeah, and quite frankly, I'm not going to force you to do that.
Thanks.
But one thing I did want to talk about, and it's been taking the internet, I would say, or the social world by storm, is Tiger King on Netflix. Now, we won't get into any spoilers, because again, I know a lot of people actually.
I didn't think you knew what the documentary was about when I first
No, I did not.
Press play.
I thought when you press play, I thought it was like an expose. It ended up being an expose, but I thought it was. I thought when you like, and again, I take back. I want to take you guys back to like almost a week ago, where Anu and I were with our daughter, and we were sitting in our living room, and we're like, "Hey, what should we watch?" And I just saw something that said Tiger King, and I just assumed it was going to be something along the lines of, was it Blackfish, like one of those like expose animal cruelty style docs where they really maybe they go undercover. Little did I know that it had elements of that.
Yeah.
But it was it was, I don't know, it was the biggest like WTF documentary series that I ever watched. There was times where I felt like I was really wasting my life, and then there was times where it made me forget that we were in quarantine.
Or it made you feel good about yourself in your life.
Yeah, it did. It also made, like, and it's funny because I had no idea who this Joe Exotic guy was. I had no idea that this sort of ugly underbelly existed when it came to big cat collections and these petting zoos. Funny enough, Anu and I went to Fort Lauderdale last year, and we went to the Everglades, and we went on this crocodile tour.
Trust me, do not spend your money on this.
Yeah, it was not all that. But it had this, like, as I watched it, I'm like, it had the same type of vibe. Like, maybe the clientele, like, the people running that zoo weren't as weren't as distinct characters as the ones that we saw in this documentary.
Yeah.
But again, it was one of those, like, tourist traps, right?
Totally.
That you just, you end up going to without really knowing anything about, and then you get exposed to seeing. And
then they force you to take a picture with an albino alligator.
Yeah, which I think till this day, I think the reason why you're so upset about it is I think you regret not doing it.
No, I don't. I fully am proud of not doing that because the poor little baby alligator had its mouth taped. And
yeah, it didn't want to bite anybody.
It didn't want to bite anybody? What does that even mean?
Yeah, that was the epitome of a weird flex, but okay trip. I didn't mind the boat though. The boat was kind of cool. It had a really fast motor. But anyways, Tiger King. What was your thoughts on the series? Like, again, to me, it just opens up a lot more interest in regards to not just that world, but like other worlds that we're probably not ever thinking about that have these types of issues. But
the one word that describes the show for me is wild.
Wild?
Literally. And
I thought you were going to say exotic.
No, it's wild. Especially the storyline, it's super wild.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know what's coming at you at any given time. You think you know, and then it's like, bam, here you go. Here's another fact that you didn't want to know, but now you're forced to listen to and actually witness.
It was, so, I'll just give you guys the gist. So Tiger King, Murder, Mayhem, and Madness, obviously is a true crime documentary.
True crime?
Yeah, a television series about the life of Joseph Maldonado Passage, and who's also known as AKA Joe Exotic. I'm really surprised based on the fact that Joe Exotic has appeared previously on like different late night shows. I've never known who this guy was. Mm-hmm. I'm also really sad that I didn't know who this guy was because I think
such a gem. I
think Joe is a complete gem. And again, we won't give away sort of the issues with Joe, but there are a ton of issues that Joe goes through. But you can't knock Joe's hustle though. Like Joe was a hustler, and he wanted to be the kingpin when it came to this world of exotic cats and exotic pets, and I don't know. He had so many elements of being, obviously wanting to be the Tiger King, but the guy made his own country songs, and
he's just a gem.
Yeah, and again, it just you end up getting exposed to like this ugly underbelly that you had no idea existed. What was there any? While you were watching it, could you compare it to anything else that you've seen? Like, I feel like there's other docs that are probably similar, like that.
No, you can't compare it to anything else, and I don't even know if it's a documentary or a reality TV show at this point, because I think the producer, the director, whoever it was, I don't think they had actually thought that this is what the end product would look like.
No, it doesn't sound like that.
I think they started with a different mission, and they ended up filming something completely different.
Most documentaries are like that, though.
Oh, really?
Most documentaries, typically you'll start with like a goal in mind that we're going to follow this person, but then something happens during the filming of it that you as a director, you as the filmmaker decide to pivot, because you start to realize, you know what, this other angle is way more interesting than what I was doing before. And it sounds like that this is what this documentary covered.
I think they're so many conspiracy theories embedded in this documentary.
Yeah.
That I feel like people are... I'm not going to be surprised if there's a part number 2 of this.
And you know what? I think the similar doc that I would compare it to will probably be the Firefest documentary. And I think the same producer was on both.
Really?
Yeah, I believe there is a tie-in to the Firefest documentary in this one. But the Firefest documentary, I think, was the same thing. I think it was originally going to cover the festival because the ad agency that they hired just, like, the guy that did the Firefest, Bill, I forgot his name, but I remember his name was Billy. He wanted to document everything happening behind the scenes. But then as that was happening, that crew ended up getting a lot more.
Yeah. That
ended up becoming the Firefest documentary. Oh, you're just showing me 100% chance post would have been Joe's. Wow. What are your thoughts on Dax Shepard and Edward Norton beefing over who should play Joe Exotic in the biopic? Who would you choose?
Probably Dax Shepard.
Yeah.
Because he can be wild. And I feel like he would really own the character really well. I feel like Edward Norton would just try really hard.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I can see Dax Shepard doing it. I'm trying to think who else. Like, I feel like a David Spade would be pretty good.
Yeah,
because he was Joe Dirt, and I think like they're very similar.
Yeah.
I also just found out, and again, wrestling tie-in because we are talking a lot about wrestling on this week's episode. I'm not surprised, but Joe Exotic actually had a wrestling tie-in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he apparently, again, I'm not totally surprised because Joe Exotic himself just seemed like a hustler, and it seemed like the most ultimate marketer of all time when it came to his zoo. He used to hold like wrestling events at his zoo, and video of these events have surfaced online, and there's nobody there. It is fascinating. Do you think there will be a season 2?
Probably.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I feel like because he's in jail now, right?
Yeah, he's in jail. So again, like this is obviously like we won't ruin the documentary for you guys, but if you look him up, you'll see. The
director had been filming this thing for 5 years.
Yeah, for 5 years, and again, if you even Google Joe Exotic, you'll find out that he is in jail. But I think with what they talk about in the last episode, I don't know. I feel like if he decides to go down that route, it's an interesting twist. But if he decides to go down that route where he maybe considers, repaying some debts, if we want to say that, it could be a strong enough case for him to leave. I don't know.
Repaying debts.
Well, if you remember the last part of the doc, I don't want to give it away, but there's an opportunity for Joe to provide some more details on the actual exotic pet industry and just some of the things taking place.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a plea bargain situation. I don't know. It's funny how everyone has that. Everyone has that free hashtag free Joe Exotic hashtag that's blowing up right now on Twitter. I'd probably think twice before tweeting that one because, again, he was convicted of doing something bad. But no, I urge you guys to go check out Tiger King for sure. I do. Any other shows you plan on checking out, being that we don't have a definite end date for this quarantine?
I feel like I've pretty much watched the entirety of Netflix since November. So I'm a little bit ahead of most people, I would say. I'm pretty sure I was the first few individuals to watch Love is Blind when nobody actually believed me that it was a good show.
Yeah.
And now I've just gone down that rabbit hole of reality TV shows, and Circle is another good one, which is, if you like Love is Blind, I would definitely recommend you watch The Circle. But other than that, there isn't much new content on Netflix. I've been finding myself doing the Netflix scroll quite a bit these days.
Is there one show, because we don't know when this quarantine is going to end and when it's going to be safe to resume normal life again, is there one show that you always wanted to watch that you might take up?
Nope.
Really?
I've watched
like, not talking about like a past show.
Oh, like a past show?
Yeah.
I don't know. No, Sopranos?
Sopranos? Yeah, that's probably the big one for me. I haven't seen Sopranos. I feel like HBO outside of...
Is she up? Is she crying?
No, she's moving around. I feel like...
She's crying.
Is she? Let's see. That's fine. We'll wrap this up. I feel like out of the HBO classic shows, I haven't seen Sopranos.
I really want to see Westworld.
Yeah, I think Westworld will be a good one too.
And
I think
Succession.
Yeah.
I need to watch that. I feel like I need to watch all the HBO.
So pretty much we need to get an HBO subscription coming out of this, which we'll probably do.
Sure.
But Anu, thanks so much for being on New Theory Radio. I really appreciate it. Again, I'm grateful that you decided to help me out. It feels good talking to somebody and interviewing them in person again versus using Skype, which I don't mind Skype too much. It's been a very helpful tool. But if anybody who's listening to this wants to, reach out to you and wants to, follow all what you're doing or your adventures as a mom, what's the best way to reach Anu Singh?
Instagram, Anubu.
Yeah. Go follow at Anubu. And this wasn't so bad after all, was it?
No. But now I gotta go check on my crying daughter.
Well, you go do that. And while you're doing that, we are going to take a quick commercial break. And then we'll be right back here on New Theory Radio on News Talk Saga 960 AM.
Theory Radio.
We are back here on New Theory Radio, here live on News Talk Saga 960 AM. My name is Nav Nanwa. I am your host, and this is the show where we theorize on all things current affairs, pop culture, and everyday life. This concludes this week's edition of New Theory Radio. Thank you so much for tuning in. A big shout out to my guests, Ben Joseph, Vaughn Vertigo, and my wife, Anu Singh. This show will be repeating again tomorrow, which is Monday from 8 to 10 p.m., and then will be available as a podcast on Tuesday. And we are going to keep the train rolling here on New Theory Radio, so be on the lookouts. Do give us a follow at New Theory Radio across all platforms, which includes Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you want to connect with me, it is at nnanwa on Twitter, at Nav Nanwa on Instagram. We actually did an Instagram Live on Friday, so special thanks to all of you for tuning in. Big thank you to Thumbin from The Element for joining me. We had a really good conversation over drinks. She was drinking a little brandy. I was drinking a little Proper 12. And then a big shout out to Dusty Loops for joining me. We had a bit of a hip-hop conversation, which is always nice. Dusty is cooking up some new beats, and I can't wait to hear them because I think, again, if you're self-quarantining right now, why not create? This is the perfect opportunity to do so, and you need to take advantage of it because, again, you don't know when this time's going to come up again, so you got to make the most of it. So special thanks to all of you for tuning in. This concludes this week's episode, and you will hear all of us next time. Peace.